class 9th. Today we are going to discuss the civics topic, that is election. Lesson number 5, page number 51. Main objectives, meaning of election, significance of election, the need for the election, kinds of election. Today we will discuss these topics. Before discussion of topic, we must know the following terms. Important terms. Election. Election is a process through which people elect their representatives by casting their votes. Democracy. Government of the people, for the people, by the people. Political parties. A political party is a group of people who came together to contest election and hold power in the government. Regional parties. Any political party with its base in the single region like Shromani Akali Dal in Punjab, Shiv Sena in Maharashtra, etc. Parliament. The highest law-making body is called Parliament. Legislature. Law-making body or organization. Constitution. A set of rules according to which country runs. Constituency. An area whose voters elect a representative to a legislative body. General election. The regular elections which are held for the formation of Lok Sabha after every 5 years. Mid-term election. Election which are held before the completion of the term of 5 years when the legislature is dissolved. By-election. The process of conducting election to fill the vacancy in the parliament because of resignation or death. Voter. A person who votes or has the right to vote at an election. Universal adult franchise. Universal adult franchise means right to vote given to all citizens at certain age, that is 18 years or above. Lok Sabha. Lower house of the parliament or house of people. Rajya Sabha. Upper house of the parliament. Citizen. A person who is legally recognized of a specific country. Now let's come to the discussion. Meaning of election. In a democratic country, people elect their representative by voting. Election is a procedure whereby persons are chosen by voting to represent the voters for running the government. Generally, there is a contest between different candidates for the same position. Thus, in election, there are winners and losers. In modern societies, elections are fought on party lines. A political party is a group of people holding similar views or beliefs. Any political party or a combination of parties getting the largest number of votes form the government. Now let's come to reading part. Lesson number 5, election. Meaning of elections. In a democracy, it is neither possible nor necessary for the people to govern directly. The most common form of democracy in modern times is representative democracy. People elect their representative who rule on their behalf. It means democracy is a form of government in which the people have a say in who should hold power and how the power should be used. In a democracy, citizens choose or elect their representative either directly or indirectly to run the country. An election is a contest between different candidates whose they belong to different political parties, which they generally do, or where they send independently for getting people's support. Any party or combination of the parties which gets the support of the largest number of people get the power and forms the government. It means election is a procedure whereby persons are chosen by voting to represent the voters for running the government. Generally, there is a contest between different candidates for the same position. Thus, in election, there are winners and losers. In modern societies, elections are fought on party lines. A political party is a group of people holding similar views or belief. Any political party or a combination of parties getting the largest number of voters form the government. Significance of elections. Elections are a characteristic feature of the modern representative democracy, wherein citizens elect their leaders in free, fair, and regular elections. Article 326 of the Constitution grants universal adult franchise to the citizens, according to which every citizen of 18 years and above is entitled to cast his or her vote in an election. Election keeps a democratic country functioning as they given people the right to select their own government. Now let's come to reading part. Significance of elections. Elections are characteristic feature of a modern representative democracy, wherein citizens elect their leaders in free, fair, and regular elections. Therefore, an election is a process by which individuals are elected for governing the country. Political parties play an important role in a democracy because elections are contested, won or lost on the party lines. Article 326 of the Constitution grant the universal adult franchise to the citizens, according to which every citizen of 18 years and above is entitled to cast his or her vote in an election. It means election is very eminent feature of the modern representative democracy, where the government is formed at the central level as well as the state level. For both the level of the governments, election is essential. As we know, democracy is a form of government in which the people have a say in who should hold power and how the power should be used. In a democracy, citizens choose or elect their representative either directly or indirectly to run the country. Members of Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, they are directly elected, and members of Rajya Sabha and state legislative council, they are indirectly elected. Direct elections, when all eligible voters with all the correct qualification correctly choose their representative. On the other side, indirect election, when the directly elected representative in turn elected other officials. This is called indirect election. Article 326 of the Constitution grants universal adult franchise to the citizens. Citizen means the person who is legally recognized, according to which every citizen of 18 or above is entitled to cast their votes in an election. The need for election. As we know, modern democracies covers a vast area. All citizens of the country, who run into millions, cannot possibly take part in the government. They can do so through their representatives, which form a comparatively small numbers. In order to choose such representatives, elections are must. That is why it is said that modern democracies are representative democracies. It denotes that without election, a democratic government cannot be set. Moreover, during the election, people learn about the policies and the ideologies of the different political parties. This helped them to become aware of the social and economic problems of the country. Election provide a platform for the political education and the participation of people. Now let's come to reading part. The need for election, except in dictatorships. Dictatorship means when the person is holding the absolute power and there is no opposition. Elections are must in all kinds of government. Their need is greatly felt because of the following reasons. Modern democracy covers so vast an area that all their citizens, who run into millions, cannot possibly take part in the government. They can do so through their representatives, which form an comparatively small number. In order to choose such representatives, elections are must. That is why it is said that modern democracies are representative democracies. It means in the modern democracies, all the citizens of the countries who are in millions, they cannot form the government. That would be a difficult process. To run it adequately, it is necessary to form the government through representatives. Representative democracy, election is very important. Next, through election alone the people can get rid of the existing unpopular governments and at its place they can elect the new popular government. There is a need for the election to choose the new people with new ideologies to run the government with new ideas. It is a fear of the next election which makes the government work properly. Otherwise, the people would topple it and throw its members out of the covetous post and the high positions. Covetous post means the high post which people wanted to always possess. Thus, it is through election alone that an effective control can be maintained on the executives. There is a great apprehension for the next elections, which makes the government work properly. As we know, the general tenure of the election is 5 years. Elected representatives have to prove themselves, otherwise, there is an apprehension of their change. We can say that election can maintain the effective controls on executives. Number 4. It is generally said, no election, no democracy. This saying is not without meaning. In simple words, it denotes that without the election, a democratic government cannot be set up. It means election is a very eminent feature of the democratic form of the government. It is rightly said that no election, no democracy. For democratic form of the government, election is important. During election, people learn about the policies and the ideologies of the different political parties. This helps them to become aware of the social and economic problems of the country. Means election helps the people to become aware of the social and economic problems of the country and the new ideologies and the policies of the different political parties. Election provide a platform for political education and participation of people. People can contest election and also discuss and debate policies and programs of the government. It means election is a good source of political education. People come and contest election and they also debate and negotiate the policies and programs of the government. Kinds of election. Elections are generally of two types: direct election, indirect election. Direct election. In direct election, people vote directly to their representatives. Law regulates the qualification, age, etc. of the voters and establishes eligibility requirement for the state officials. Every adult person holds the right to vote. There is a very large body of voters called the electorate. Members of the legislative assemblies and members of Lok Sabha are elected directly. Indirect election. In indirect election, people elect their representatives indirectly through their elected representatives like members of Rajya Sabha who are elected by the elected members of state legislative assemblies. All elected representatives are treated at par. Eligibility requirements for the state officials is similar to that in the direct election. Every elected representatives hold a right to vote. There is a very small body of voters. The members of the state legislative council, members of the Rajya Sabha, the President of India and the Vice President are elected indirectly. Kinds of election. There are the two kinds of election. One is direct election and the other is indirect election. In indirect election, voters directly elect their representatives to legislature, while in indirect election, voters first elect a small numbers of electorate who in turn elect members of legislature. The MPs, Member of Parliament, MLAs, Member of Legislative Assemblies, and members of the local bodies are elected by the method of direct election. However, the member of Rajya Sabha, the President and Vice President of India, and also the members of Vidhan Parishad in a state are elected by the method of indirect election. It means there are the two types of election, that is direct and indirect election. In direct election, people of India directly elect their representatives of the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. The members of state legislative assembly, known as MLAs, are directly elected by people of the state. The member of Lok Sabha are known as member of parliament or member of Lok Sabha. They are also directly elected. Second kind of election, that is indirect election. India has two types of legislature, both at the union and the state level. At the state level, only some states have the second house called the Vidhan Parishad or Legislative Council or upper house. At the union level, the upper house is known as Rajya Sabha, which is a permanent house. The election to both the houses at state and the union level is indirect. Moreover, the election of president and vice president is also indirect through the electoral college. Just have a look on the difference between the direct and indirect election. Direct election, indirect election. In direct election, voters directly elect their representatives. In indirect election, voters do not directly elect their representatives or head of the states. They elect only an intermediary body or the electoral college. Number 2. Law regulates the qualification, age, etc. of the voters and establishes eligibility requirements for the contestants. In indirect election, all elected representatives are treated at par. There are no further qualifications. In direct election, every adult citizen holds the right to vote. In indirect election, every elected representatives hold the right to vote. In direct election, there is a large body of voters called the electorates. In indirect election, there is a small body of voters. In direct election, member of legislative assemblies and member of Lok Sabha are directly elected. In indirect elections, member of state legislative council, member of Rajya Sabha, president and vice president of India are elected indirectly, as we have discussed. Children, in this video we will discuss till here. Now you will have to reread this part, learn the basic terms and kindly follow the SNAP homework. Thank you.